Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858, the War and Love Report. I am Amir Goodname. The life of United States people are still affected by climate change. In North Baltimore County, emergency crews cleared through the damage. Um, Enormous trees completely uprooted, left homes crushed and roads impossible to passable, rather impossible. This morning, Maryland governor said it's a long road ahead. This is going to take some time to fix. The damage from last night is significant and it will take time to make sure that we are getting everything done. According to PBS NewsHour, a fast-moving storm swept through the East Coast on Monday night, prompting severe weather advisories in 10 states and the District of Columbia. In upstate New York, outside Dryden, tornado funneled clouds whipped through gray skies. Nearly 30 million people were under a tornado watch yesterday as the strong gusts caused tree limbs in several states to snap. A Pennsylvania resident says that is the worst he had seen it. He meant there had no trees left. They were all gone. The storm killed 2 people, officials said, after a tree fell on a 15-year-old boy in South Carolina and a 28-year-old Alabama man was struck by lightning. Last night, more than 1.1 million households and businesses lost power. By midday today, that number was down to 240,000 customers. The huge storm front also wreaked havoc on air travel in the region. Yesterday's storm led to some 10,000 flights being cancelled or delayed. By midday today, more than 2,500 flights in and out of the US were delayed and 370 cancelled, according to FlightAware. And in Washington, D.C., as ominous clouds rolled over the White House on Monday, federal offices shut down early, giving government employees time to dodge the hazardous commute. Today, about 10 million residents in New England remained under flood watches as the system moved north. Elsewhere in the US, dangerous heat is in the forecast for 67 million people, roughly 20% of the US population, from Southern California to the Florida Panhandle. According to an expert, summer temperatures are increasing, and along with that increase is an increase in the frequency, the duration, and the intensity of heat waves. Expert added that health problems caused by extreme heat are becoming more and more frequent. She said people, for example, who had a heart attack who didn't have a heart attack otherwise, or pregnant women of having an increased prevalence of low birth weight babies, with babies coming sooner. So, according to Laura Barron of PBS NewsHour, quote, blistering heat and severe storms both made more frequent and deadly by climate change, creating a more unpredictable world to live in, unquote. The ECOWAS ultimatum to coup leaders of Niger had no effect. In Niger, leader of the military coup rejected a proposal visit today by UN and African diplomats. They cited popular anger at the West African regional bloc, uh, ECOWAS, and its threat to use forced to reinstate Niger's elected president. In the meantime, a delegation from neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali arrived in Niger's capital in a show of support for the coup. Mali government spokesman said that uh, the brotherly Niger are facing difficult times. Mali and Burkina Faso had been through similar ordeals. They would like to reassure them most firmly of our their support and solidarity. Later, the ECOWAS bloc chairman, who is the president of Nigeria, said the group now prefers thousands gathered in Ireland today to say goodbye to Sinead O'Connor. Ahead of a private funeral, mourners lined up to view a procession to the late singer's hometown of Bray. A hearse carrying the coffin drew rounds of applause and flowers as fans honored O'Connor's legacy of music and activism. According to a mourner, Sinead O'Connor was so passionate and she was so forthright, and she stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, and she was vilified for it. And time has proven that she was right. These were the statements of a mourner. Sinead O'Connor died on July 26 in London at a young age of 56 years. Now to the city where everybody is strike. In other words, the city is on strike streak. Los Angeles. More than 11,000 Los Angeles city employees were on a 24-hour strike today. That includes sanitation workers, lifeguards, and airport staff accused the city of unfair labor practices. So the river is flowing upstream. So the mayor does not agree with it. We remember that two strikes are still going on. Writers Guild Street and the actors SAG-AFTRA strike in Hollywood. They involve thousands of people. The employees who are related to Hollywood have been off the job since May. These are Writers Guild, and the actors started a month ago. Hospitality workers have stayed job actions through the summer. Mr. Biden is visiting Arizona today, where he is set to formally preserve a million acres of land near the Grand Canyon is a new national monument. Environmentalists and native communities have long pushed for the land to be protected. The move is intended to permanently block uranium mining in the area. Voters in Ohio are heading to the polls today for a special election to decide whether to make it harder to amend Ohio state's constitution by raising the threshold from a simple majority to 60% of the vote. Republicans in Ohio introduced the ballot measure just months before voters will decide in November whether to enshrine abortion rights in Ohio's constitution. The Republicans' mega donor Richard Uihlein of Illinois, a key backer of anti-abortion groups, has bankrolled the Republican effort by giving $4 million to the group Protect Our Constitution.
Helicopters, and boats, while lifeguards made sure people stayed out of the water. It's the first suspected shark bite here in 70 years. But not far away on Long Island, there have been multiple attacks this summer. 5 people were bitten while lifeguards made sure people stayed out of the water. It's the first suspected shark bite here in 70 years. But not far away on Long Island, there have been multiple attacks this summer. 5 people were bitten over the 4th of July, shutting beaches down during the busy holiday. Last July, there was a similar flurry of attacks in the same area. 5 people were bitten, including helicopters, and boats, while lifeguards made sure people stayed out. Multiple attacks this summer. 5 people were bitten over the 4th of July, shutting beaches down during the busy holiday. Last July, there was a similar flurry of attacks in the same area. 5 people were bitten, including teenage surfer Max Haynes.
I felt on my foot like a bear trap just get me from below, and it's like hard. It felt like it broke my foot.
Marine biologists believe the small bait fish that sharks eat, called bunkers, may be partially to blame.
If the bunkers stay off.
You saw a report by NBC reporter about a shark attack in New York City beach. Thanks for NBC. Donald Trump has suffered another legal setback. A federal judge dismissed the defamation countersuit filed by former president against Jean Carroll in May. A jury ordered Trump to pay Carroll $5 million after it found him liable for sexually abusing her at a department store in the 1990s. The Supreme Court of the United States has reinstated a federal regulation aimed at curbing the spread of ghost guns. Such weapons, privately assembled from parts, have no serial numbers. A Biden administration rule sought to change that, but a federal judge in Texas tossed it out in June. The Supreme In the financial news, on Wall Street, stock retreated as China reported sharp drops in exports and imports, and Moody's downgraded credit rating for 10 smaller and mid-sized banks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 158 points to close at 35,314. Sorry. The Nasdaq fell more than 1 point and the S&P 500 slipped 19. In Chicago, police have charged a 43-year-old man with first-degree murder after intentionally shooting a 9-year-old in the head while she was riding her scooter. Eyewitnesses said the scooter was upset that the girl and other kids were making too much noise in front of his home. The gunman, who has been identified as Michael Goodman, is expected in court today. This marks the second time gun violence has shattered the girl's family. In 2018, the girl's mother was fatally shot in the head. Still, there is no winner for Mega Jackpot. It has raised to the $1.6 billion. Let's see who is the lucky one. Britain began housing asylum seekers in a large barge off its southern coast in an effort to save money over housing migrants in hotels. This comes despite numerous protests and warnings. Last week, the firefighter union said the barge was a potential death trap due to a lack of fire exits. There are also reports that the barge has no life jackets. Meanwhile, in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams has announced a plan to house as many as 2,000 migrants at a tent complex on Randall's Island in the East River. Severe weather also dominating northern Europe again today as a powerful storm battered the region. Heavy rainfall inundated Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and the Baltic states. Downpours in western Sweden sent a river pouring out of its banks, flash flooding a nearby town. A day earlier, a train derailed when the rail bed was washed away. So far, the storm is blamed for two deaths in the Baltics. Forecasters say the rough weather could continue through tomorrow. Antarctica is also affected by weather, warming of weather. A study out today finds sea ice in the southern polar region hit a record low in February, and minimal ice level were 20% below the 40-year average. These findings were posted in the journal Frontiers in Environmental Science. Now we go to Eastern Europe. Ukraine continues its counter-offensive against Russia, but progress remains slow and casualties continue to mount. Question mount about the lack of consequences. A leading British military think tank today reports that the Ukrainian operation is going more slowly than expected and blames the slow provisions of advanced weaponry by Western partners. So the fighting and dying continue at a horrendous pace. In the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, a desperate search for survivors a day after a deadly Russian attack. Residents is still reeling from the shelling that killed at least 7 people and wounded dozens, even the most innocent. Ukraine says Russia launched 2 missiles 40 minutes apart to target rescue workers after the initial strike, a tactic called a double tap. The attack came late in the evening, destroying vehicles and apartment buildings. 58-year-old Katrina was at home at the time of the blast. The blood from injuries on her face is still fresh. She said that the flame filled up her eyes and she fell down on the floor on the ground. Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers continued the fight against Russia in their now 2-month counteroffensive. They have Western training, US and European made weapons, and seemingly infinite resolve despite soaring temperatures. One Ukrainian soldier said that they don't pay attention to heat. They says work has to be done, so they don't spare themselves. At the end of the July, Ukraine liberated Staromaritsk in a campaign that aims to cut Russia's land bridge from the east to the south and occupied Crimea. But progress has been slow along the 900-mile front line, and it comes at a great cost. There is no official figure for Ukrainian casualties, but at field hospital like we have seen near Bakhmut, soldiers streaming from the battlefield. The injuries are a relentless reminder of the cost and toll of war. Ukrainians are facing deeply dug-in Russian forces who have constructed and fortified hard to overcome obstacles, including those so-called dragon teeth barricades and hundreds of miles of concentrated landmines where not even Russian corpuses can kill. On the state of war, President Zelensky said that they are winning. Thanks for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I'm a good man. Thank you.